Well, hello there, and welcome to day 106 of A Film a Day with me, Jordan Woodley. And today I continue my horrifying theme of horror genre films with the, not too long ago, 2020 I believe, released the Mortuary Collection. Now, horror obviously has a long history in anthology. It's a great mechanic for being able to tell stories in that genre whilst not having the pressures that a feature-length horror film has to maintain scares and maintain an atmosphere. I mean, I remember, for me, one of the earliest examples of an anthology horror film that I saw was something like Tales of the Vault, which of course starred a post-Doctor Who, oh no, sorry, wrong way around, pre-Doctor Who, Tom Baker. And of course, you know, we have tons of examples of where horror is used in an anthology format for film and television, including Tales from the Vault, Tales from the Crypt. Of course, recently we've had examples like Trick or Treat. It's a great structure, and of course when you go to television you have things like American Horror Story or The Twilight Zone, which of course walks the line between science fiction and horror, but you know, it's a fantastic platform to be able to tell short, contained stories that represent a really nice scare, and yet at the same time, because they're contained and they're small and they aren't overly cumbersome, I suppose. There is something campy, I suppose, as well about the anthology horror. So this film stars Clancy Brown is our mortician, named Montgomery Dark. So you can tell that it has that sort of slight camp edge to it, and he stars alongside Caitlin Custer, who plays a young woman who is visiting him, interviewing for a job, and they are our main framing device, where of course he tells her stories of a horrifying nature to do with the bodies within the mortuary. And like I say, it has that like camp to it and that silliness. And I think, again, the anthology structure allows for that really nice line between humour and outright scares. You know, something where, for instance, I'm not a big fan of, say, something like Insidious. Because Insidious, at its core, was quite a horrifying idea about a child going into a coma and the parents having to deal with that and the potential supernatural relationship. And then the film introduces slightly campier elements, like the psychic or the guys who are like Ghostbusters, and it took me out of the film. That I want a consistent style to it, and that's a real problem with the horror genre, where either you have incredibly dour, quite serious films that have to work very hard to keep the characters interesting whilst maintaining that tone and style to them, or you have a really well-placed horror film that then is slightly led astray by the fact that you introduced minor humour elements to it. I mean, examples where it's done well in film include something like I love, and it is probably up there as one of my favourite films of all time, Cabin in the Woods. Really found that nice balance, but then it did it in a meta-textual way, I suppose. Or Drag Me to Hell, I suppose, is another example. But that has that sort of Sam Raimi kind of sensibility to it. So it could find that nice balance between horror and humour. But the anthology format is really good at that. And the stories vary, and the beauty is you can have a story where you go, well, this didn't click with me, but then the next one does. And in this, I believe you have 5 stories, or 4 or 5 stories, and of varying lengths and varying tones. So you know, you might have the first one, which is to do with a woman who is opening a safe, and what's inside the safe, and it has a very punchline structure to it. Or you have the second one, which is about a frat boy and his frat house, and him having a sexual intercourse with a young woman, and then weird things start happening to him, and there's really, you know, there's like meta text about the culture of it. And then you have the third story, which is about a man taking care of his sick wife, and the struggle of it, and the fact he's given a way out, but then there are horrifying consequences to what he does. And then I won't go too much into the last story, because it ties. Actually, okay, it's about, because the story is called The Babysitter, and it's about a babysitter and the child she's looking after when a insane asylum has had a breakout, and what happens there. But again, we're in the age now, of course, of the meta text, and consequently, you know, these aren't entirely as we'd expect. There's a real sense of self-analysis, and of course our framing device is there to sort of analyze. So we have Caitlin Custer who playing a girl named Sam, and of course she's sort of commenting on each feature, you know, in a very metatextual sense. And so it knows what kind of film it is, but at the same time, there's something quite... It plays back to, like I say, that EC, DC Comics horror, like, particularly with like a film like Creepshow. It has that same sensibility to it, and I think it's fantastic. It's not true horror, because like I say, it has that sense of silliness. But if you like that, this is perfect for you. I mean, Clancy Brown is the embodiment of this. I think Clancy Brown is a phenomenal actor. I genuinely think he's great. But he has this very sort of, this way about him, and particularly in his voice, which is, there's something quite animated, and when I say animated, I mean almost like an animation in his voice, that has this camp to it, I suppose. Even though it's deep and booming, it feels like the voice of a cartoon character at points, which of course makes sense because he's played many animated characters. And so when I watch something like Thor Ragnarok, and he plays the demon fire god in that, and unfortunately it does take me out a little bit when you hear his voice, because there's almost something humorous about the way that he inflects. And with this, initially I was thinking, oh, is that going to have the same effect? But it's perfect. It's the perfect embodiment of the style of this film. And again, his performance, there is no qualms against his performance. He's a fantastic actor. So yeah, I did really enjoy this very much. And of course it's under Shudder, which is the subscription horror service, and truly that is the platform for horror experimentation, where lots of low budget and decent budget horror films are being like this, I'd say. Mortuary Collection is definitely in the higher budget area, but again, it allows filmmakers to tell interesting horror stories whilst not being sort of under the pressures of appealing to a broad audience. But yeah, this was fun. If nothing else, this was fun, and this is actually a horror, which is nice, as opposed to some of the other films that I've so far covered this week. Anyway, if you like this video, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and please go through. I have over 100 videos now, so if there's anything that might take your fancy, please watch some of my older content. I'm on Twitter at Jordan_Woodley, where I'm tweeting movie trailers and movie news and funny videos, and of course links to episodes as they go up. Thank you for joining me. Take care.